Well, good evening, Cedar Falls. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. Happy New Year, everyone. I'll now call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Schultz.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Gamfield.
Here.
Sires.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And with that, as we always start our council meetings now, begin us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please, if you're able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now, is there a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of December 19th?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? Any from the public? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have agenda revisions tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Items 22, 28, and 29 are being removed from the resolution calendar tonight.
Okay, so we will not discuss item 22, 28, or 29 this evening. Looking forward, I have no special presentations tonight, so I'll open it up for public forum where speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics related to city business. Does anyone from the public wish to speak in public forum tonight? Yes, Ms. Stahl, name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Tammy Stahl, 1009 Lakeshore Drive. I'm here obviously speaking to the City Council, city employees, and especially to the citizens of Cedar Falls. It's become obvious from talking in the community and articles in the newspaper that our fire chief of 42 years of experience has been suspended because of what a public works employee did. Thank you, Andy, for putting information out in the paper. How much did they want to charge you to get additional information?
Please direct your comments to the chair.
It was a kind of a statement. John Bostwick, our fire chief, has been gone long enough and needs to be reinstated. Our town needs an experienced fire chief, and he is the only one who has the skills and abilities to fill the job. Our population and business ownership seems to be growing, and we need more fire safety protection, not less. There has been too much secrecy in this entire process. It is time for the citizens to know what happened, and untrue innuendos of the fire chief Bostwick need to stop. The fact that unrequested pay via a less than ideal time clock system with no others being held responsible is very telling and concerning, especially with the mayor's campaign promises. Our citizens deserve better. We were sold the public safety department. Daryl, you sold me. With assurances of experience leading the way. That experience has been sabotaged. City Council has the ability to review this issue themselves and reinstate our experienced fire chief and put an end to this madness and waste of a really experienced employee. I just opened my Currents magazine, and there's not even an article or any reminders of public safety in here. It's kind of an all-time low, do you think? It's time for City Council to take control, do your due diligence, and reinstate Fire Chief Bostwick. You have the ability to do so. Find out, and after you do that, find out how all this happened. I just got done listening to Fire Chief Howard talk about recruiting for quite a bit of time, and my question is, why would anyone want to take the chance of getting a job with the Cedar Falls Public Safety Department with the history of what is happening in our public safety department, especially a senior employee in a newly created public safety department in the middle of COVID? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stahl. And just for the record, Chief Bostwick is on administrative leave. He's not been suspended. Looking at additional for public forum, does anyone else wish to speak tonight in public forum? Okay, seeing none, then I'll close the public forum and take us over to staff updates. Director Gaines, or Administrator Gaines, do you have any staff updates for us tonight?
So just one, Mayor. I know that I've been asked a number of times about hiring of the DEI specialist, and we have actually made an offer to an employee, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have that employee onboarded and bring them to a council meeting for an introduction. So,
Thank you very much. Moving over to special order of business tonight, item number 2 is a public hearing on the proposed FY23 to FY28 Capital Improvements Program, or CIP. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that does pass. And Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications filed about this?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And looking over to Director Rodenbeck for staff comments tonight. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Sure, just a couple introductory comments. So tonight is the public hearing for our 5-year capital improvements program, or the CIP. There are 212 projects for a total of over $459 million. As you and the council are aware, this is a planning document, and that most items will come back before council for final approval in some fashion, whether it's a construction, bid documents, design contract, consultant contract, 2080 agreement. Again, most things will come back before you. And then the FY24 column on the CIP will actually be incorporated into the FY24 budget that we propose to council, and then council will see that again through the budget process. We've had some steps in the CIP process before getting here tonight. First, the council, through their goal setting, did outline various parameters and priority projects that help guide the development of the CIP. Then on December 19th, the Finance and Business Operations Committee reviewed the CIP in detail, and council had the opportunity to suggest changes. Our goal when developing the CIP is to try and minimize the impact on property taxes, and we also try and focus on needed infrastructure improvements as well as quality of life projects. So the proposed CIP before you tonight for approval is the one that was presented at committee, but with the changes that the council made motions on it that night. Also tonight is the adopting the reimbursement resolution that we also do every year as part of the CIP process. The proposed CIP was included in the packet. If the public wants to view it, it is in the packet. And then after it's approved, we'll obviously have it on our website as well for the public to see.
Thank you, Director Rodenbeck. And before going into the council discussion, does anyone from the public wish to speak on this in the public hearing? Okay, seeing none, then I'll consider the public hearing closed and take us over to Part 2E, which is the resolution approving and adopting the FY23 to 28 Capital Improvements Program. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, and open for council discussion. Okay. Seeing none. Oh, yes, Councilor DeVere.
Well, there's 3 items that I have difficulty with on this. You know, I'm very concerned about GO and GRG general fund spending because I know this is what's used to set the budget, and I don't want to do anything that would create a tax increase. The items that I have some issues with were item number 36 was the ramp. I realize that doesn't have that funding, but I feel that they should do the feasibility before we put the 20 million in the CIP for building it, before we've gotten the feasibility study done. And then on both 53 and 70, which was the Unidome and the pool, the Unidome uses economic development money, where the pool uses general fund savings, and also 700,000 GO funding for FY24. And we're a taxing entity, so it's same as them. I don't like giving one taxing entity to gift money to another taxing entity without the input from the public. So I'm very concerned about the 700,000 for the GO funding when there hasn't been a public referendum on it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Gayfield.
in our previous meeting, we talked extensively about item number 53 with the Unidome renovation, and specific the UNI funding, and we asked that these would be called out in the CIP with an asterisk to denote that this was not city funds, but this was UNI funds. I do realize that the asterisk was added on the summary page, but I was expecting that each of these items where non-city funds were included would also be called out. So for that, I'd like to see that adjustment so that there's clarity there for the citizenry as well as council reviewing. I don't know if that's a simple revision we can make by a referral or how you would like to do that if this is to be talked about and voted on tonight.
So for Mr. Gaines, it wouldn't change the dollar figures. It would just clarify those sources. So is that something that could be basically like a Scrivener's error kind of change?
I think that's a relatively simple.
Right. Yeah, I know we talked extensively about that in the last committee meeting. I think there was questions about should we include external funding, not external funding. But then I think people like the idea of including external funding in terms of grants. So I think that's where we thought we landed at the last committee meeting, was putting the asterisk on the summary page. But yes, if you want us to go through and put the asterisk right on the actual item with the denoting that it's outside funding, we can sure do that.
Would any council members object to that? Okay, so.
You're talking about putting the asterisk next to the letters,
You and I, the 16.
you and I, or,
Mhm.
sure. Do you want it for all of them that have the asterisk on the last page?
Yes.
Such as Met and NFG?
That would be more helpful. That was my intention last time. Sorry about the miscommunication there.
Okay, so that'll be added in. Any other?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cyrus.
I do have some issues with this. We need to look at what our priorities are. We can't just overspend and overspend and overspend, and some of these big projects do need a referendum vote from the citizens. We've got to really look to our budget and be careful so that we don't have to raise taxes, and I believe right now there will be a tax increase if we go ahead and approve this for all these different projects. That's all.
Thank you. For Mr. Gaines, Director Rodenbeck, you able to comment at all about tax levels based on this CIP?
Sure. One of the things that, why we put the CIP together is to try to even those things out. So we don't have a big spike in property taxes increase in one year. We try to, map out when our GO funding is going to be. You might have also noted in your packet that on the one page, we also look at, with everything being equal, if assessed value stayed the same, if we sold bonds at the same amount we did, we look to see what would that cause for a tax increase. And you'll see in there that it shows that I think it's 1.43% over the 5 years, which shows that's the point of doing the CIP, to try to map out those GO funding. Now, I think we were pretty upfront with the council at the committee meeting that, we try to stay in that $3.5 million to $4 million every other year to try to, again, kind of maintain that staying level. We knew with the $4 million in the CIP for each of those every other years, we were probably on the high side, which is reflected in showing that it does show, an increase over the 5 years. So I think we kind of, like I said, talked about it at the committee meeting, and that is true, that anytime you're having projects and selling bonds, and you could have a tax increase for that. But we're trying to do the best we can to level them out, and again, try not to have those spikes.
Mr. Mayor, just one other comment is, with regard to referendums, there's outlined in the state code what actually can be put out for a referendum, and then what the council actually has that authority to do. So.
And is it a dollar trigger or a type of?
Well, there's certain
trigger?
items that actually can be or need to be. So, for instance, if you were when you talk about GO and you're talking about a recreation project, the maximum with our size community that the city could spend in a GO on a project would be $700,000. Anything above that would need to go out for a referendum.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, questions from council? And I'll just ask, Councilmember Schultz, can you still hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
It helps when, like if Ron speaks in his microphone, that helps.
Okay. Good job. So any questions for us, Councilmember Schultz?
No, I'm fine so far.
Okay, great, thank you. Any others?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
Item 129, which is the Main Street reconstruction. The Peterson contractor's bid was $29,997, $30 million basically, and it's listed here at $31 million. I'm looking back, I see there's some of the past expenses, I'm assuming, design and land right away. acquisition, is that what's running up the cost?
Over Mr. Gain, or
Yes,
actually.
could be that, or administration during the project through into next year, into FY23. There's a lot of different things that are still unspent out of that, other than the bid.
Okay, is, in this type of contract, we touched on this with the Whitewater project, architect fees or consultant fees are a percentage of money spent, or are we negotiating flat dollar contracts? Because there's a significant difference when you have cost of concrete rising and you have a percentage of the cost of goods, cost of materials. The architect fees goes up automatically and there's no more work being done.
Most consultant fees or contracts are not to exceed amounts or fixed fee amounts
Fixed fee
in the
amounts.
contracts.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
I was going to ask a different one, let somebody else go.
Sure, yeah, and then we'll come back to you for 3. Any others? Okay, so yes, Councilmember Cruz.
I guess I don't know the number right off the top of my head here, but going to the Whitewater discussion, there was a, I called it the water engineer, that we haven't established who is going to be doing the observation of placing rocks and testing the flow so that it's usable and safe, and will do the water features that we want. Or have we come to hire someone, or where are we at with that?
I can let Director Shoggy answer this question, but I think he's already contacted, 5 or 6 different companies that are actually looking at it, and some are interested, some are declining, and some just need some more information. So we'll be bringing that contract back probably the next council meeting.
Because my understanding, they're going to start here in January, right? January, February, March is the scope of the contract because of the freezing temps. So these firms have to step right up and have a spot in their schedule to do this. Okay. And that'll be a flat fee as opposed to a percent?
Correct. That'll be listed in the contract when it's brought forward.
Okay.
I'm sorry, do you know offhand what the number of that project is?
56.
What, 56?
So any other questions or comments on CIP? Okay, so it's been, I'll say it's been motioned and seconded for the resolution approving and adopting the FY23 to 28 capital improvements program. Motion and seconded, and requires a roll call vote. Okay, and Councilmember Schultz, your vote
Aye.
is an aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Have an aye. So Councilmember Schultz is unable to attend in person. He's on phone with us and watching on Zoom. And is it Mr. Gaines? Are you doing the vote tally for him? Okay.
4 voting nay, 3 voting yay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Motion fails.
Okay, so the CIP does fail. And takes us over, actually, for item 3, resolution declaring an official intent under Treasury regulation to issue debt to reimburse the city for certain.
Right.
We can't have that.
Mayor, I was going to say that, so really we'll have to pull
Yep.
item 3 then.
Yes, I was just reading the item so people knew.
Sure.
But that item will be pulled or disregarded as well. So no number 3 tonight. Item 4.
So Mayor, can
Yes.
I stop for a second? I just didn't know if there's any direction council can give us in terms of bringing a CIP back.
I wouldn't think this would be the appropriate time to do that.
Okay.
So I would suggest a special meeting.
Committee meeting?
Do we need a special meeting for the time frame? Or just have a committee meeting at the next regular council meeting night?
Well, I think if we're going to have a committee and then vote, and then wait 2 weeks at a council meeting, then we probably have to have a special meeting. Now, if we feel like we can do a committee meeting and vote on it the same night, then we probably don't. But
Yeah, I would
we can
expect a
talk about that.
special meeting then, because we don't know if we'll be able to get it done in one night. So just plan on that, council. Okay, item 4 is public hearing on proposed Southwest Cedar Falls Urban Renewal Plan for proposed urban renewal area. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Madam Clerk, do we have written communications filed?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So for staff comments tonight, we have, is there a motion or
Yeah,
motion to receive and file proof of publication?
Just point of order, as motioned and seconded, we just need to vote.
Okay, so it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so that does pass and takes us over to Mr. Graham. So Economic Development Coordinator Shane Graham will give us a brief on this.
Thank you, Mayor. Back in December 5th, City Council set a date of public hearing on a new Southwest Cedar Falls urban renewal plan. This proposed urban renewal plan has been developed to promote economic development near our industrial park. This property encompasses 76 acres and it's located just to the south of our existing industrial park. This area is being formed by that property. Again, the city is looking to acquire that for future industrial growth. The advantage of establishing an urban renewal plan for this area is it allows the city then to use tax increment financing funds to help with the development of that property. In the plan, eligible urban renewal projects include development agreements, land acquisitions, utility extensions, capital improvement and public infrastructure projects, and then also legal fees and expenses. As part of the adoption of the urban renewal plan, state code requires the city to hold a consultation meeting with the taxing entities. The city did do that on December 13th. There was no taxing entities in attendance for that meeting, as well as with the other state code requirement is that the Planning and Zoning Commission shall review the plan and make a determination whether or not it is in conformance with the comprehensive plan for the city. The Planning and Zoning Commission did review that on December 14th, where they did unanimously recommend that this proposed urban renewal plan is in conformance with the Cedar Falls comprehensive plan. So with that, staff would look to approve the urban renewal plan.
Okay, thank you. And just as a note too, then item 4 and item 5 will be tied together. Only item 5 can only be considered if item 4 passes. So with that, open for public comment. Does anyone wish to speak in the public hearing? Okay, then I will consider the public hearing closed on this item. And that will take us over to 4E, which is the resolution determining an area of the city to be an economic development area, and that the rehabilitation, conservation, redevelopment, or a combination thereof of such an area is necessary in the interest of public health, safety, or welfare of the residents of the city, designating such area as appropriate for urban renewal projects, and adopting the Southwest Cedar Falls Urban Renewal Plan. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded and open for council discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Gayfield.
I would just like to get some clarity from Shane perhaps on this one. Is there a sunset on this particular TIF district, or is this like the other districts where it's a rehabilitation?
This one's designated as an economic development urban renewal area, which does have a 20-year sunset.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, seeing none, it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilor Schultz. I got your aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so that does pass, and that takes us over to item 5 then, which is the resolution approving and authorizing execution of an offer to buy real estate and acceptance for real estate located at 6512 West Ridgeway Avenue relative to the expansion of the West Viking Road Industrial Park. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any council discussion on this or questions? Okay, seeing none, does anyone from the public wish to speak on the item? Okay, seeing none, then been motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Schultz, aye.
Thank you, Councilman Schultz.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And so that does pass and means that we will move to purchase that property. And takes us over to old business, which is item 6 is repassing over mayor's veto ordinance 3021 amending section 1823.5 powers and duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Code of Ordinances relative to removing the 2/3 majority vote required by City Council to approve amendments to the city's comprehensive plan that are disapproved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. This does require 5 aye votes to override the mayor's veto. So is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for council discussion. Yes, Councilmember DeVere.
Well, this problem basically evolved when there was a complete zoning ordinance downtown. That was done prior to this council being on, and it was done rather quickly toward the end of the year before a couple of the council members, I know Ward 1 and Ward 5 were different members. And since then, there's obviously been a lot of difficulty making any changes to that downtown ordinance. I know in your cover memo, you mentioned that, well, it's been this way since 2008. Well, I think the big difference was we had never had a complete change in the zoning, such as what we had with the downtown. And I think it's important that we try to move forward, and it's been impossible to move forward with the way the zoning has been interpreted, and the fact that when we discuss something, for example, the required parking, shared parking, we couldn't get past, it'd go here and then it'd go back to P&Z and then it'd come back to here. We are supposed to be the authority that makes those decisions. And I think by changing this, we can actually get some clarity and get some movement forward. And I think it's important that we do this.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Dunn.
So we have citizens who serve on our commissions. They give their time and their talents to our city. We ask them to volunteer. They submit those applications. Mayor makes those recommendations, and council approves those folks to serve. This is, as just stated, this is going on, the move to change is for one instance, a single matter. So in my mind and my concern as a citizen of this community is we haven't got our way through this process via this, the conversation and the back and forth, the council. My concern is that we're taking away the power of the process. And if there was an overall concern for needed change, I could get behind that but this is all about, to me, a power grab. And I worry about us shooting ourselves in the foot and not having people willing to serve on our commissions. And to me, the process, no matter, if it doesn't come back, there was a couple times where I voted, fine, let's kick it back to planning and zoning. Planning and zoning they combed through it again. It's been such a long process. And then they kicked it back to us. And because we didn't get the answer that we wanted, now we're trying one last thing. And so I worry about the precedent it sets for our boards and commissions.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Giffield.
I'm going to address just a couple of those concerns because I know we're on the same team here. We have a Parks and Rec commissioner that spoke recently and said, as a member of the Park and Rec Commission, they did not want us to pass a certain initiative, and yet we did. I was elected by citizens who actually have the power because they weren't satisfied with what happened in the prior council. So was Mr. Schultz, presumably. The citizens are in charge here. There's no power grab by the council present. We're attempting to put the citizens in charge. We're the ones who have recourse, and frankly, we're the ones who have the ear of the citizens. I value our planning and zoning commissioners just as much as you do. I value our Parks and Rec commissioners apparently more than you do. We are putting our citizens back in charge.
That's not a fair comment.
I listened to
You're ascribing motive to other council members.
I was no motive inscribed. That was simply what happened.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hear what he has to say.
I'll try to continue.
You can continue, but please remain civil with it.
It's civil. It's just we don't need the politicking going on where we say we're going to listen to P&Z, but we're not going to listen to Parks and Rec. We're going to listen to the highly important P&Z commissioners, but we're not going to listen to the citizens who put me on this council. It's silliness to say that this is somehow a power grab or I didn't get my way. That's the exact recourse of an electoral process. They didn't like what happened, the citizens, They elected new councilpersons to change what they didn't like, and yet we can't do it because we're held at bay by a minority. I'm not even upset about what instances were, but the way that things were instilled before I got on was wrong. 2002 and 2003, the prior city council, then serving, also elected to make this exact same change, to move it back to a simple majority in charge. Since the state has made it legally allowable for cities to change this, more than half of the municipalities that we investigated have changed to a simple majority. Only Cedar Falls vetoed that prior 2003 push by Mayor Cruz, saying that that wasn't how it was supposed to be, and the way I read it was because there was a precedent of a supermajority being required, and he wanted to maintain that. Mayor Green has said his rationale: I don't believe that this puts the city in jeopardy. I believe this puts the citizens back in charge. And the way that we get up in arms about this change is not helping our citizens. So stop accusing or thinking that somebody else has a motive and just vote for what's best for the citizens, putting their elected representatives in charge.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Harding.
No, I wasn't really going to speak, but just a couple clarification items. Ward 1 representative chose not to run, so that was going to be a new seat anyway. Kelly won her seat, so she ran again, and you won by like 2%, which is good. You won. So I wouldn't want it to be misrepresented that the city was up in arms and wanted all these changes, when in reality, it really wasn't that way. Secondly, it's not a power grab or anything, and we are all on the same side, but it is 100% a policy change to gain what you want, or to try to maneuver to get more what you want. That's fine if that's the way the game is played, but you know, you see blue, it's blue. So if there were certain members that were on the side of the way other people saw it, which it's good that we don't all see it the same way, then this policy change may not be happening. So just kind of scale it back to the fact that we are changing policy for specific zoning reasons. Susan said it, and I agree with her, and I think she said it best as, this is why we're here, and we have to decide which side we're on. But to say that the people said this and said that, well, in reality, people revoted, like I said, Kelly, they had no previous option, and you won by a few %. So.
Who mind writing on unopposed, Simon?
Yeah, what I meant was there was no incumbent.
Right.
Okay. And Councilmember Schultz, do you have anything you'd want to add on this now? I don't want to put you on the spot, but just want to make sure you're available here.
No,
We can come back to you.
A lot of perspectives. Actually, from each of the other council members, I've done a lot of discussions with folks in my ward and folks throughout the city. I am I've made up my mind, and I just will proceed with the vote based on that.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Cedar.
I can refresh people's memory a little bit on that 2002 vote. It started out with my wife and I wanting to rezone some for self-storage, and we got voted down by the planning and zoning. I believe it was 9-0. So we had to have a supermajority, so we went to council, because everybody should always be allowed to come to council. We got our supermajority and have built our storage facility and provided a service to the city. But the whole thing was, we need to have faith in the elected officials, because the citizens of this community have put us up here because they said, this is who we want to represent us. And I like planning and zoning, and I go to almost every single meeting, and I want them to discuss things, but the ultimate power always needs to lie with the citizens who vote. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilor Sires. Other comments? Councilmember Curtis, please.
So, responding to a number of the things that have been said, this is not a singular issue. This is a structural issue on how the current planning and zoning and city council process is set up. and I guess I'm the one who brought this initially forward as a referral. With the way it's set up currently, you can have minority control, and it's just what it is. So looking at, doing a little research, I look at the state city zoning ordinance 414.6 actually, powers and duties of zoning commission. The commission with due diligence prepares a preliminary report and hold public hearings thereon before submitting its final report. And such council shall not hold its public hearing or take action until it has received the final report from the commission. I'm not entirely certain that we should be going like a ping pong ball back and forth between planning and zoning and council. I think the final decision rests with council. We too have put in a lengthy amount of time and talent. We have broad backgrounds, all of us, in many areas. And we're fully able to take the pulse of the community to see what works and what doesn't work. And I strongly believe that a simple majority is sufficient to establish what the citizenry wants, and we shouldn't have to go to a high level supermajority, because then, like I said, the minority is then in control. Because there's no incentive for planning and zoning to adjust anything when it does go back to them, because they know that they'll prevail if we don't have a supermajority. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from council? I'll just note, I stand by the veto that I put forward. I see that this idea of a minority control, it lends this idea that a simple council majority, 4 members out of 7, gets to prevail on every case in front of the city. And that's not true. That's not how it works. There are plenty of instances where, like for the removal of a council member, it takes a 2/3 majority of council to remove a member. It's not something a simple majority gets to decide. And there's a higher level of scrutiny in some instances, like removing a council member. I think that same higher level of scrutiny should prevail in planning and zoning decisions. These are very long-term issues that are being brought before the city. In the case of Councilmember Sires and his storage unit, I don't know why, I'm not privy to the information, so I don't know why it was turned down by the Planning and Zoning Commission, but it was right that then it came forward, in my mind, that it came forward to council and the council supermajority approved it. So perhaps that Planning and Zoning Commission, they read the rules differently, perhaps there was different interpretation, but finally the political decision was made. But I don't think that should have happened, especially when it was a 9-0. In that case, it should just be 4 members deciding that. It should be at that higher level of scrutiny. So again, I stand by the veto, and I hope that the council will respect it.
Clarification. So on the vote, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. If voting aye means you're overriding the veto, voting no means you're supporting the veto, correct?
Correct. Voting no is to support the veto. Voting aye is to override the veto.
Okay, just want to make sure.
And it does take 5 votes to override.
Okay, just want to make sure everyone was.
And this is
kinda
just
clear.
for item 6.
Yep.
Can I ask a question regarding the mayor's veto? It seems like a mayor's veto should be not on close issues. This was a 4-3 vote. It wasn't a 5-2 or a 6-1. Is there anything in the policy regarding when you can issue a veto based on the number of votes?
No.
No.
State code. If it was 7-0, I could still issue a veto. And I would do that if
basically,
necessary.
it's whether you respect the decision of the majority.
Yes. Or whether I agree with the decision of the majority. In this case, I do not. So with that, it's been motioned and seconded, and I'll just read it again to repass over the mayor's veto, ordinance 3021, amending section 1823.5, powers and duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Code of Ordinances relative to removing the 2/3 majority vote required by City Council to approve amendments to the city's comprehensive plan that are disapproved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Schultz, no.
Four voting aye, 3 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so 4 aye, 3 nay, and since that was 5 aye votes required to override, that veto holds. Item 7 is repassing over the mayor's veto ordinance 3022, amending chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to removing the 2/3 majority vote required by City Council to approve zoning amendments that are disapproved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And again, this requires 5 aye votes to override the mayor's veto. These are two separate parts of the code, so that's why it has to be considered separately. And my cover memo covered both aspects because it was a very similar discussion. So this might be a short discussion. But it's been motioned, or is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and seconded, open for council discussion. Anything we need to add from the last conversation?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Ginfeld.
The only thing to point out here, if it holds any sway, is that the comprehensive plan obviously is much more robust, and therefore I understand your desire to keep that more difficult to adjust. But simple amendments that are disapproved, but the council majority thinks should happen, should still go with a simple majority. So this one could change, though the other one did not, and not be damaging to the city.
Any other discussion or comments? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motioned and seconded. I won't read it again since we just did it, but an aye vote would be to override the veto. A no vote would be to hold the veto as is. So it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Schultz, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, wake up. I'm sorry.
Into Gills. You're Kelly, you're good.
Well, it keeps saying, am I good? Because now it says I haven't voted. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. 4 voting aye, 3 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. And that does hold again. Those two vetoes remain in effect. Consent calendar will move over to, and these items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Is there a motion to approve items 8 through 7, or excuse me, does any council member wish to pull an item 8 through 17?
I'd like to pull 10 and 14.
Okay. So 10 and 14. And any others from the council? How about from the public? Does anyone want to pull an item for a separate discussion? We're always happy to do so if we think it needs to be talked about. Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar from 8 to 17 minus items 10 to 14 and 14.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so those items do pass, and that takes us over to item 10, which is receiving and filing disclosures of potential conflicts of interest for elected officials. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and seconded. Open for discussion. Councilmember DeBurn.
Yeah, I checked with, I don't remember in the 19 years I've been on council ever having to receive and file these disclosures. I checked with city clerk, and we have not previously received and filed them. So I guess I'd like an explanation why this year we have to receive and file them.
It's a change that I made as the mayor. I decided that it was important enough for the public to be aware of what our potential conflicts of interest are, that we would officially receive it publicly, and I'll do so in the future.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Cyrus.
I haven't filled mine out for the last 4 years, and there was a reason for that. I want to read this little section I have. The purpose for disclosure of potential conflicts of interest is so the other people engaged in the decision-making process are fully aware of potential conflict. I make my disclosure to the city council, not to the administrator or the city attorney, because it's the city council that is the decision-making body for the city. As a member of the city council, we do not report to the city administrator or the city attorney. I myself recused myself on the self-storage facility in the park. I believe this is an honor thing. As the administrator also knows, he's aware of the properties that I own. But another thing, I always read everything that I sign. And it says in here that I must also comply with the city policy of outside employment. I am not an employee of the city, I am a representative. I'm a representative of the citizens, and when I first got on the council, I made that very clear and changed my first signature that said I am a representative. I represent the citizens of this city, and I'm always glad to disclose if I think I have any reason to recuse myself, and those are my reasons. I've made aware to the other council members what the businesses, I own several businesses in town, and anytime, if ever one was up for a close vote, I would always recuse myself, because I think that's the honorable thing to do. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I will read for the conflict of interest statement, since it was brought up. The policy is a personnel policy. It's policy 807, conflicts of interest. It's approved by the council. I did include this in the cover memo for the potential conflicts of interest statement. I'll read it because there's contention here about who has the authority to compel us to do that. It's not the city administrator, it's the council itself. This is a council policy that says, it is the policy of the city of Cedar Falls to prohibit its elected and appointed officials and all employees from engaging in any practice, activity, or act that unlawfully conflicts with or appears to conflict with the interests of the city. To comply with state law, the city of Cedar Falls requires all full-time, permanent part-time, certain purpose, special purpose employees, and elected and appointed officials to sign an annual declaration of compliance with this conflicts of interest policy. So regardless of how a council member feels about whether they should have to or not, or what the authority of the administrator is, you can't escape the fact that it's a council policy that's requiring it. And I would encourage the council, either the council needs to police its members to do so, or remove the policy. You can't have it both ways. Either you're going to require it of your members or you're not. This isn't an option. It's not a voluntary activity. It's a required activity in a policy. And it's a concern to me that there's a council member who's willfully violating that. So.
Well, my concern was that I guess all the prior mayors have been wrong, and you were right, because we've never received and filed this before, and I just think that it's taking a step too far.
In what way?
To make this into a receive and file document.
So why is that out of
Well,
order?
why did the other mayors all decide that that did not have to be done?
They were their own mayor. They made their own decisions. I'm not here to simply carry on what was done in the past. And I'm going to use my own discretion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Dunn.
I guess this is a question. I don't know if somebody has an answer, and I guess I don't totally need an answer, but I wonder if it had ever been a problem in the past of people not complying and filling out the conflict of interest. I for one, appreciate that it, I just don't understand. We talk about transparency. That's a word that this council loves to throw around, but we can't just fill out the simple document that's in policy. So I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
So, Mr. Gaines, do we have any background on whether these have not been submitted in the past? Is this a common occurrence?
I guess I don't have any of that data in front of me, Mr. Mayor. I know that we get these almost year-round just because board members and employees are coming and going. So I know HR does a great job in trying to track them, but I haven't asked for any data on that.
Okay, thank you. And this is simply a receive and file item. So is there any final discussion? Then it's been motioned and seconded to receive and file conflicts or disclosures of potential conflicts of interest for elected officials. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
That's, so I'll take by voice. That does pass. And well, actually, let's leave a show of hands. So all in favor, raise hand. All opposed? 1, 2. Okay. So that does pass. And councilors, well, it passed with it. Yeah, okay. Looking at the next is item 14, receiving and filing CFD 1129 Mayor Policy Administrator Performance Evaluation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Excuse me, to receive and file.
Well, yeah.
So moved. Second?
Second.
Okay, motion seconded. And Councilmember DeBrey, was that your question?
Yes, I was asking if we could have a change in wordage or scriber's error. they've listed the word counselors in here. I don't have a law degree. I would ask that they change it to council members instead of counselors everywhere that it's in the document.
So counselors is not a legal term. It's a common use term for council members across the country. Would you just prefer to say council members?
Yes, I do not have a law degree. I do not like the word counselors. I've always found it offensive, and so I'm simply asking for an amendment to the document to change that word that's in the document repeatedly to council members.
Okay, so for city councilor, we're going to change that to city
It
council
doesn't
member.
say city councilor, it says counselors.
Okay.
And I do not have a law degree. I don't think anyone else here does either.
Okay, I have no concerns about changing that, so we'll call that a scrivener's error, and I'll just make that change. Any other discussion? Okay, motion and seconded to receive and file. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that passes as well, and takes us out of the consent calendar and over to the resolution calendar, where these items will be acted upon by a roll call vote in a single motion unless a council member or a member of the public requests that a specific item be considered separately. So does any council member request to pull an item? Just a note, we will not be talking about 22, 25, or 29. Those are off the calendar.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Yes.
25 or 28?
28, I'm sorry.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So 22, 28, and 29. But does any council member request to pull one of the other items from 19 through 34?
Mr. Mayor, number 20.
Number 20, okay.
19 and 32.
So 19 and 32. 32. Steve. Okay, any others? Okay, any from the public wish to pull tonight? All right, so then I'll entertain a motion to approve those items on the resolution calendar minus 19, 20, and 32. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motioned and seconded, this requires a roll call vote.
Point of order. Mine still says that I need to vote for the repass of the mayor veto.
Okay, so just stand by, Gil.
Refresh.
It doesn't have a refresh option.
I need a second to get it in here.
Okay, so
Okay.
just stand easy for a moment.
It's not going to change your vote because it's already the same.
It should be ready now if you refresh.
For all,
Perfect.
Is that better now, Councilmember Dunn?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Now mine got stuck when you made your change.
It's accepted.
So Councilmember Schultz, how do you vote on this for the resolution calendar?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Which one?
That's it.
6 voting aye, 1 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so those resolution calendars items are
Didn't let
approved
me.
and takes us over to item 19. So this is the resolution approving and adopting the FY24 City Council Goals Work Program and Short-Term Financial Plan. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for council discussion. Councilmember DeBeer.
I pulled it because I wanted the opportunity to vote no on it.
Okay. So any other comments or thoughts on it? All right, so motion, or any from the public as well? Any comments? Okay, so I'll bring it back. Motioned and seconded to approve and adopt the FY24 Council Goals Work Program and Short-Term Financial Program. It's been motioned seconded and requires a roll call vote.
This is on 19 only.
Correct. This is just on item 19.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. We have.
4 voting aye, 3 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So that does pass and takes us over to item 20, which is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a service agreement with Cope Murphy and Company, LLP, relative to providing lobbying services relative to legislative action. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Councilmember Cruz, you had a question or comment about this?
Yeah, I've been involved with a number of lobbying contracts over the last 15 years, and the one thing I've always done with my contracts is the term of service or term of the agreement matches up with the lobbying or the legislative calendar. The legislative calendar starts 1st of June and runs, 1st of July and runs to June 30th. The actual activity at the State House starts next Monday and will go to April and maybe into May. But if you were to hire or want to change lobbyists, this contract goes until roughly a week or 10 days before the next session starts. So what I've done with my contracts, lobby contracts, through my boards that I'm on, we change it so that 1st of July, or in this case, what we would do, we'd have to possibly extend the agreement to be June 30th, 2025, so that in the event we want to research and find a new lobbyist, you do that through the summer, put them in place 1st of July or shortly thereafter, then they go and poll the membership of who they're working for, get the ideas that they work on. This agreement says that they start January 1st, which is a couple days ago. So they're not, if we had somebody new, they would have to go to the old lobbyist possibly, or in some fashion get up to speed on what's happening. So the lobbyists that I've worked with understand it. It takes a little bit of thinking it through on their part, but I think that's something we should strive for, because your hands are kind of tied here if you know, I guess there's a 30-day clause if you mutually terminate, 30 days written notice, prorate the fees and so on. But if people understand what I'm getting at here, fiscal year versus a calendar year, because the legislative session runs on a fiscal year. And whatever's been passed through the legislative session becomes law pretty much July 1st. Some things are immediate, some things have different dates, but most everything becomes state law July 1st.
Okay, so what were you pointing?
I just wanted to make a
Yes,
comment
go
on
ahead.
that, Mayor. We actually years ago had it fiscal year, and one of the reasons we went away from that was because when we were going out for RFPs, it happened to be right when the activity was going on at the State House. And so that's what kind of drove us to January, is that then we can go out for RFPs if we decide to do that, solicit things when it's really not when the State House activity is going on. So now, I understand January 1st causes our problems too. I guess the only thing I would suggest is if we want to change the date, I don't think it should be July 1st. I think it should be more like October 1st, something that then in the summer when the State House isn't active, isn't when you're also trying to do the RFP and try to do interviews with lobbyists, because of course they're very busy that time of year also.
So with that suggestion of October 1st, then, what would you think about that?
I guess respectfully I would disagree or question when the timing of your RFPs would be. If you had a contract with whoever your lobbyist is and it ends June 30th, that's the end of the legislative session. The laws are implemented, everybody goes home and stretches and they start doing what they do for fun for summer. And lobbyists typically don't do anything until, in some cases in an election year, they wait to see what the House and Senate composition is going to look like to determine what types of legislation might move and then become active. But RFPs, I would think, would go out. You'd notify who you have here and say we want to terminate because we're not happy with them, or whatever reason, and maybe because of cost or so on. Then July, August, September, in that time frame, you put your RFPs out, and then the lobbyists that are anxious for business can see that Cedar Falls is looking for a gun to hire, and they submit their proposals, and it goes then till June 30th. It might start in October. We can do that, but having a January 1st start date doesn't give a new lobbyist any chance to come in and have meetings with us to discuss what's the hot topics, what do you want to lobby for, and that sort of thing. So
my understanding, I get your point.
Okay.
Like seeing the timing and like when it makes the most sense to do it. I believe that since we have our sessions in January to talk with the legislators come in and the lobbyists also come in, I liked that approach of January, mainly so that we can get the gist of, or the sense of the legislative session too, and have that discussion in January. It's just like with the goal setting document, it didn't make sense to have the legislative stuff in there because by the time it gets approved at the council, it's too late, or it's obsolete, and then we figure out what the council or the legislatures want to do. So I totally, for the timing.
Okay, can I?
Yeah, please.
Anybody else want to say anything?
Okay, Councilor DeBoer?
Well, just a question. Because we used this company the last 3 years, and then this is an extension of 2 additional years, would that be something with what Daryl's saying to use at the next one? Because we might have, because he's talking about basically if it was a new lobbyist, where this is the same one we had the prior 3 years. So would that make sense to change it in in 2 years?
Yeah, we can change the date in the next process when we do RFPs, because at this point, we would probably start in the fall to do RFPs then for the next time that a contract is over in January, because we wouldn't want to go months without a lobbyist.
And Councilor Cruz?
Couple points here, but this is a 2-year contract, calendar year 23 and calendar year 24. June 30th, 2024, the session is done. The activity, the efforts, and the work of the lobbyist is implemented July 1st. Okay? So if you talk to this lobbyist and explained that we want to go to a fiscal year, and I could make a motion to amend the end date of this, and I guess we'd have to talk to them if they would.
We wouldn't be able to amend. We would have to, because it's a set contract. I'll speak with Kevin Rogers as ghost here. But
well, I guess because January, yeah, it's started. Okay, we can look at that, but Mr. Mayor, to your point, the legislative session for lobbyists starts pretty much right after the election, or in a non-election year. They have their bills and changes submitted to legislative services. January is too late to change effectively the direction of bills. I've done it for close to 15 years, and our former lobbyists and even our current lobbyists, I've gone through 4 of them now, they all say they want to know strategy and policy and concerns September, October, November, and if it's election year, they see if the election changes the I don't know, persuasion of what could happen. But if you wait till January, they have things called Day in the Hill. You can go down there. The realtors have them, the landlords have them, different organizations have them. You can go down there and talk to your legislators. But you're going to be too late to steer the ship, because the first funnel is mid-February. Comes really fast. Mm. And if you don't have your bill in there, in a subcommittee and out of a full committee, it's dead. So our lobbying efforts should be, after 1st of July to get something that's really critical for Cedar Falls, something we feel strongly on. We need to be chatting with the lobbyist through late summer into the fall.
Okay, thank you. So any other comments from council? All right, so seeing none, any from the public? All right, then it's been motioned and seconded to approve and authorize the execution of the service agreement with Cope Murphy and Company LLP related to lobbying services relative to legislative action. Motion and seconded, and requires a roll call vote.
Schultz, no.
Four voting aye, 3 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Madam, thank you very much. And so that does pass, that agreement. Moving us over to the last item in the resolution calendar is item 32, a resolution approving a C1 commercial zoning district site plan for the construction of a triplex to be located on Lot 4, Hannah Park Commercial Edition. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, open for council discussion. Councilmember DeBuer, you had a question on this or comment?
Yeah, the map that we were given here on page 657 that shows the floodways, I was confused when reading this. I think the yellow part is supposed to be the 500 flood year and the gray is the 100. So if I'm looking at this correctly, is the third building over, or the third, they're all one building, but the third one, the one furthest to the east, is that primarily the entire residence in the floodplain? In the 100 year? Because that's what it looks like in the map.
Yes, that is in the floodplain. The one, these buildings are in the floodplain, so they have to elevate them 1 foot above the 500-foot floodplain when they build.
But not anything over the 100 year, just the 500 year?
Everything that's in the floodplain, either the 100 or
Either.
the 500, if they're in the floodplain in general, 100 or 500, they're going to have to elevate that building above the 500-foot floodplain, 1 foot above. So that's the higher level. It's because Cedar Falls regulates to the 500, which is higher.
Okay. So the occupants of the third structure would be basically considered safe from being flooded?
Yes, yes, because they have to be elevated above the floodplain that we regulate.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments? That's been motion, or any from the public as well. Okay, so motion and seconded on 32 to a resolution approving a C1 commercial zoning district site plan for construction of a triplex to be located on Lot 4, Hannah Park Commercial Edition. It has been motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Schultz, aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that takes us over to item 35, which is allowing bills and claims for January 3rd, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion or from the public? Then it's been motion and second and requires a roll call vote.
Schultz, aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that takes us over to to council updates and announcements. Does any council member have an update or announcement tonight? Okay, seeing none, then any council referrals for this evening? Seeing none. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is executive session. So this would require a vote to move to executive session. This would be executive session to discuss legal matters per Iowa Code Section 2151C to discuss strategy with counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent, where its disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the governmental body in that litigation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Schultz, aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And for the rest of, or for the gallery tonight, we will be moving to executive session, and so that discussion will be behind closed doors. We will come back just briefly in order to adjourn the meeting, but there'll be no votes taken tonight once we get back into open session. So this really concludes the meeting, but you're welcome to stay if you like to watch us hit the gavel at the end. Your call. So if not, thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Again, very happy New Year to everyone.